Hey there, and thanks for stopping by to check out my channel. 1 mile with a $200 barrel and a $550 scope. Sounds almost crazy, doesn't it? But I tell you what, that's exactly what we're gonna do in this video. I've got my trusty 7 PRC here. She looks a little bit different than you've seen in previous videos, but we're gonna push this thing out there and see what I can do beyond 1,000 yards. If you like the sounds of that, stick around because we've got an awesome video in the works here for you. Now I'm timing this video alongside the launch of the new Element Helix Gen 2 6-24. So we're going to be highlighting this optic as we move through the video. I've also got the Element RF module weapon mounted laser rangefinder on top that we'll be using. So it's going to be kind of a fun look at some of the gear here as well as the shooting content. Now with that, let's move into a quick gear review and talk about the setup that I'm running. Well, as I mentioned, I'm shooting my trusty 7 PRC. You've seen the barrel in action many times on the channel now. So the action is going to be from Pristine and the barrel is from Outlier. Now the cool thing is this is going to be the Savage pre-fit configuration, meaning I actually assembled this at home. So you just get the vise block for the action, you get your barrel, you get your headspace gauges, and boom, you can put together a sub-MOA rifle. And that's exactly what this rig is. So shout out to Pristine. Kind of what makes Pristine unique is how smooth the bolt throw is on this thing. This is just a very high quality, very smooth action. I love the Savage pre-fit configuration to allow me to install barrels at home. It's got a scope rail on top. It's not integral to the receiver, but it is mounted with pins so that it won't move or shift around. Dual ejectors, floating bolt head, and you can actually swap out the bolt face to be several different Magnum calibers. Right now she's set up to run 7 PRC. The barrel I'm going to be running is my Outlier barrel. This is a 1 8 twist, 26-inch 7 PRC. So Outlier, I've been shooting this now. I've got several hundred rounds on it, but Outlier, they're almost too good to be true. So this barrel hits the market at roughly $200. So I do have a code with Outlier, and that's going to be mullets. So when you use my code, you're going to price out a barrel like this in the $200 ballpark. So they claim 1 MOA or better accuracy. And I tell you what, this barrel is doing it consistently. So this is a 1 8 twist. I'm going to be shooting the 198 tip hand load through it, and I can promise you she's going to be a sub-MOA shooter, and we're going to have some hits out there at some pretty crazy distances. Now the other cool thing about this rifle is going to be this Woox chassis. So I tell you what, Woox reached out to me. I really didn't know a whole lot about them, and they said, hey, we got a super cool chassis system we'd love for you to run and let us know what you think. And I said, yeah, heck yeah. I knew I had this video coming up because I wanted to get this Element Helix in content here for the launch, and I said, hey, I'll just put it on the 7 PRC and we'll push it out to some ELR content. And I tell you what, this thing showed up. First off, I noticed how cool this thing looks, man. This is just a clean stock. This thing just looks good. It's got really kind of a resto mod look with the wood, kind of old school, but then it's got the features of a chassis. So inside the chassis, it's going to mount the action just like any other chassis. Torque your screws in, put the recoil lug in, it's gonna be spot on. So really happy with this chassis. The one thing I did notice, when Woox sent me the chassis, the Outlier barrel, I believe it's 1.25 inch diameter, wouldn't fit in the handguard. Now the cool thing is the handguard is wood. So I just got in there with my grinder and she's custom fit. So now she fits, she is free floated. The fore end, the actual chassis piece is skeletonized. So it's actually quite, I believe, small. Still robust, but then it's got kind of the wood around it here to kind of fill out the handguard that you're going to use. But like the Arca rail actually mounts to the M-LOK. So the other thing to notice about this chassis would be kind of the cheek piece here is adjustable, as well as the buttstock being adjustable. And then you do have to install a bottom metal, which I've done here with this. I can't remember who sent the bottom metal, but you get the bottom metal for the magazine length that I'm running here. Really quick, let me fix my camera. Alrighty, if you find yourself interested in picking up a Woox chassis, make sure you're using my code MMM10 to get yourself 10% off. So again, kind of the cool thing about this chassis, it dropped right in. The action, it's a Remington 700 footprint. You just tell them what action you're gonna run, what bottom metal you want, and then boom, they'll send the chassis out for you. They have different colors. This is the Furiosa chassis. And there's a couple of different kind of, I'm gonna call them skins, but this one I believe is just the walnut or the wood, and it just looks great. So now up top, this is gonna be the new Element Helix Gen 2 6-24 optic. So kind of the cool thing about this optic would be, comes to market at $550. It actually launches at the time of this video. So if you're seeing this, check out Utah Airguns, who provided this optic to me, and that's where you could pick one up for yourself. So $550, 6-24 magnification range, 34 millimeter tube, mill scope or mill turrets, mill reticle with a nice Christmas tree reticle in it. It's very clean. I find it to be very usable. This thing has turrets that you zero out with no tools. So you just loosen kind of the top cap here, pick it up, set it down, tighten it back down, and boom, you can re-zero. So to me, that's one of the coolest things about Element optics is the ability to re-zero them without tools. So kind of where this scope makes sense, I believe this is a nice entry-level scope. If you're looking to get into long range, you don't want to drop a ton of money on an optic, you want something that's nice and it's going to function, that's where this makes sense. So I see this as kind of a hybrid, say, hunting or target scope. So hunting in that it's fairly light, decently small footprint, but it does have some tactical type features in it. You know, things like a zero stop. So it does have a user settable zero stop. It's got that Christmas tree style reticle in it. On this side, you can see the parallax knob. It'll parallax down to something like 15 yards or 15 meters and then all the way out to infinity. So really, this optic, I'm just finding it kind of cool at the price point. 550 bucks, and you're getting a very usable optic. Now, the one thing I do notice, there's 8 mils of travel per turn on the turret there. So not a ton, but that is kind of normal in an optic of this price point. So that's going to be kind of a high level overview of the Helix Gen 2 available now. Check out Utah Airguns, who provided me this optic to create content with around the launch. So really excited to be able to bring this to you. I want to ask for your help. My channel is growing like crazy, and it's your support that helps me grow this channel. Watching videos, sharing with friends, commenting, but most impactful is subscribe. I'm on a mission to get to 100,000 subscribers, and I need your help to do it. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button so that you're in line for my next video drop, and we signal to everyone that we're up and coming and we're ready to take over the gun tube space. Now, the final piece of gear on top is going to be the RF module from Element. So this RF module is going to be a range finding module. Comes to market at $530. So weapon mounted laser rangefinder with onboard ballistics for 530 bucks. Again, Utah Airguns provided this to me. So if you're not familiar with this, the principle is point your rifle and scope at a target, range it, and then get your ballistic data right out of the unit. Typically, these are going to be well over $1,000. Even the affordable or more budget-friendly options are going to be in the $1,500 range. This one's 530. So this is going to be my first day out here actually using this RF module, and I can't wait to see how it performs. So online, they mentioned this is a 1,000-meter capable laser rangefinder. So you zero it up to your scope, you point out there, range a target, and we're going to test to see how far I can use this, and does the ballistic solution actually match reality. So this right here is a nice, easy way for someone to get into a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder. Again, 530 bucks from Utah Airguns. Almost sounds too good to be true. Now, if you want to learn more about any of the products that I'm running or any of the partner companies that I'm working with, make sure you check out my campsite bio, where you can learn more. Now, at many of those companies, I have codes that'll save you money, and in some cases, they will give me a small kickback that I use to help grow the channel. Now with that, what are we gonna do in the video? We're gonna move down to 100 yards. We're gonna zero the rifle. We're gonna test scope tracking and return to zero, give you a look at accuracy and velocity information here on the rifle, and then we're gonna push out and shoot steel out to distance. I can promise you we're gonna have shots out to a mile. We're gonna start close at about 600 yards and work out. You're gonna see how a $200 barrel and a $550 scope perform out to a mile. Let me know what you think as you watch this video. Here we go. I know we're all curious how she shoots on paper at 100 yards, so let's take a close-up look at those results. Now at the 100-yard line, there's quite a bit going on. And actually, this is the same paper that I shot last night. So there's a lot of rounds on the paper, but let's chat about what I did today on camera. So the first thing I did out of the gate this morning was fire these 3 rounds right here. So this would be cold bore +2. I was aimed at this dot, and you can see they landed just a couple of tenths low there. Now it's worth noting the last rounds I fired on paper last night before I left the range were these 2. So it is possible there's a slight shift there. I don't have enough data though to say that that's consistent or not. So this morning I adjusted this up 2 tenths. Then I loaded up 5 more rounds and fired them here on the lower left dot. And as you can see, those 5 rounds go into a very solid group. So those 5 rounds are going to measure 0.75 MOA. So under the 1 MOA claim that Outlier has on their barrels, which is legit. Now the whole time I'm shooting, I'm running my chronograph. So I fired 14 rounds, and let's go ahead and talk about the velocity before the next test. So across the 14 rounds, I had an average of 29.76. I had an extreme spread of 46 with all the rounds fired, which is a little bit large. SD of 13.1 again, which is large, especially when you think about the goal of shooting 1,000 yards plus today. I went back and actually reviewed the footage, and what I found, there was one round that kind of ran high outside of the others at 3,001 feet per second. So if I pull that out, then I'm at about 33 feet per second spread. The low end was 29.55 with the high round being 29.88 once you remove the 3,001. So pull that out, my spread actually is pretty decent, and then my SD would drop down into a range, which again I think is decent. And what you're going to see in the video are pretty solid results. Now the next thing I did, no cooling or anything, I went ahead and loaded up 3 more rounds because I wanted to test the tracking of the scope. So while aiming here at the lower left dot, remember I had just fired this group right here, so this is where they landed. I dialed up 6 mils and fired 3 rounds, which landed right here. Now the interesting thing, at 100 yards, 1 mil is 3.6 inches. So 6 mils should be 21.6 inches of adjustment from impact to impact. Now when I put a tape measure on this, I find it's going to land just shy of that, probably at like 21.25 to 21.4. In the scope, I measured this at 5.9 mils instead of the 6 which are measured out. So a slight difference there in actual results versus what I called for. If you can convert that over to a percentage, it's like 98%. So roughly 1/10 of a mil difference within 6 mils of dialing. And what you're going to see out here today, out to 1,000 yards, I'm really not going to be dialing much beyond that or holding much beyond that until I get into the really far shots. So for the bulk of the shots with this rifle, say a 7 PRC, 1,000 yards and in, I'm going to be within this difference. So yes, there is a little bit of a difference, and depending on the rig that you're shooting and how much you need to dial, may or may not impact your results and what you're trying to do. So for me, I find this to be kind of a minimal type issue, but I do want to note it. I then dialed back down to my 0 and fired 3 more rounds, which landed here. So I was aimed at this dot and they landed right here. And as you can see, when I returned back to the 0 point, these rounds landed exactly where these rounds did. So it does seem that the scope returned back exactly where I wanted it for the 0 setting. It's also worth noting, when I ran through the optic here, it did seem like the optic responded for windage and elevation. So what I called for is what it did. So I'm happy with that. Now from here, I actually dialed up 1/10 before we push out and shoot steel. The other thing I did at the 100-yard line, I had a license plate mounted up here, and I actually zeroed out the RF module here. So the RF module, if you're not familiar with a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder, it has a visible laser that you're going to zero to your optic. So I use a license plate, which is reflective. You got to have that in the daytime for really any visible laser. But I zeroed this at about 0.8 to 0.9 mils high above my crosshair, so that as we start shooting today, within the distance this is capable, I just point at the target with my turret on 0, range it, and this RF module is going to give me the distance as well as the elevation. So I actually plugged in my ballistic data, so my velocity, current weather, and then I loaded that 190 ATIP in the RF or the Element app. You send that over to the unit via Bluetooth, and now you've got your ballistic profile loaded so that when you range a target, it's going to match the rifle you're shooting. And we're going to see how that works out to at least as far as I can range with it. So if you're interested in seeing how this rig performs at distance, stick around. Let me know what you think about the performance of this rifle at the 100-yard line. Ultimately, a .75 MOA 5-shot group is very solid. Return to 0 is good. The one thing I did note was 5.9 mils instead of the 6 that I called for. So a little bit of a difference there. But with that, let's push out and see how she suits at distance. Well, let's start out at about 650 yards here, something nice and easy. Absolute beautiful morning for shooting. It feels dead calm right now. So there at the 100-yard line, you saw my 0 was a smidge low. I did bump that up about 1/10 to clean that up. And I updated the ballistic profile in the Element RF module. So with that, all we're gonna do is look at my steel. So on the right, I have a 2/3 Zipsic. And on the left, I have a 12-inch stop sign from Echo Gong. And Echo Gong's thing is that's supposed to ring really loud. So with that, all we do is just point. I'll just point at the base of the target to be safe. I'm zeroed out on my turret, and we'll just go ahead and range that. .650 yards, 3 mils. Now with the sun at my back, it's hard to see that screen, but in the shade we're good. So 3 mils up. I'm just gonna hold that, and we will, well, let's just try the echo gong. 3 mils straight up. Impact first round. A little bit on the right edge. Impact. Impact. All right, that was easy. Let's push further. And here we are off of a tripod, kind of a hasty field type position. So we'll just take a look at our targets out there. Now, if you're not familiar with a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder like this, you leave your turret zeroed, point at the target with your crosshair. I'm just gonna point at the base. 851 yards, it's calling for 4.5 mils. Why don't you say we hold that? So 4.5 mils, it's actually calling left 0.1 because maybe some spin drift in that. But I'm gonna favor left something like 0.4. There's a little bit of a left to right. Low left. Impact. Right edge. Impact. Well, let's go on the 2/3 IPSC just for fun. Time to go over it. Let's put a couple more. Impact. Impact. You can see them up in that upper left shoulder. So I can actually see the impacts on the white plate through this optic. Pretty cool. Let's try the echo gong. Impact. I believe that was an impact. You'll have to let me know in the comments what you saw. Let's try a couple more. Left edge. Back. All right, let's keep pushing out. Alrighty, let's push back over 1,000 yards. We've had good luck so far with the gear. Here, I know I'm in the ballpark of about 1,100. I was ranging a little bit off camera, and I find the RF module is not picking up my target out there. So online, the RF module is listed as a 1,000-meter unit. I did get a good reading. I stopped, it happened to be 978 yards, so it did get a good reading there. I apologize of the kind of blur there on the screen. The refresh rate on that and the iPhone don't jive, but it was a good read at 978 yards. I moved back here and now it's not able to pick up the target. I know I'm over 1,000. So overall, pretty impressed with the RF module. That thing's like 530 bucks and it ranged solid out to 978 and gave me good data. Now I'm gonna swap over. We're gonna use those Vectronics Vector X's and get on the target here and see exactly where we're at. So I have loaded my profile in here. So these actually use applied ballistics. I have updated that with the velocity and the custom curve for this 190. Okay, 1,120 yards is calling for 7 mils up. And then the wind I put in was a 3 to 6 mile an hour wind from the 9 o'clock there, and it's calling for 0.5 to 0.8. So let's just go ahead and dial the 7 mils so you can see some dialing action. So we'll just dial up 7 mils. So that's going to be almost 1 rev on the turret. Let's get down on our targets here. Check my parallax here. Pretty solid. I can still see those impacts on the plate. All right, let's go on the 2/3 IPSC at, let's go 0.6 left. Oh, right where we aimed. Too aggressive on the wind. So left edge. Impact. So it's important to note I've got my level here on the Griffin mount. Need to keep an eye on that to make sure we're nice and level. And let's give it another go. Seem to go just off left edge. Impact. Let's try that 12-inch echo gong. Okay, just over it. Let's do a couple more. That echo gong's a pretty small target out there, so this will give me a chance to really true up my data. 7 mils dialed. Let's just go left edge again. Okay, same spot. It looks like I need to come down maybe a tenth. Back. 12-inch echo gong, 1,120 yards. Pack. All right, that's pretty cool. 1,100 yards with a $550 optic. If you know me, you know I'm always going to try to push the limits on things, so I had quite a bit of ammo left. And I got a new target from Echo Gong, so I got a 24-inch circle from Echo Gong. The reason I'm going to mention this is this portion of the video and all of the ELR content is going to be made possible by that target in Echo Gong because it's 1/4 inch thick, which means it's not terribly heavy, and I had the energy to hike it up the side of that mountain to get some further shots. So what we're going to be shooting from now on in this video is going to be the 24-inch Echo Gong. That's a great target for, say, 1,500 yards plus. I expect it's going to ring loudly, and the biggest thing for me is the target is light enough and the mount is small enough that I could actually hike it up that mountain to hang a target to get you this content. So with that, let's push out further, see how far we can hit with this thing. So let me get my Vectronics up, and we'll just range that target. 1586, that's calling for 12 mils up, and a right or left 1.3. So let's go ahead and dial that on. 12 mils will be, so there's 8 in 1 revolution, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 12 mils dialed. Zoom in on that target. Let's just go all the way up to 24 power. So there you can see 24 power, a little bit milky. Let me do my, all right, parallax is just all the way to infinity. So field of view is a little bit small. I'm going to back that out. And let's just send some rounds. So 12 mils up. I have not trued this load at all this far. This is the furthest I've shot this load. So we'll see what happens. Left, 1.3. Just off the 4 o'clock, it looked like. Okay, that looked about 2, 1, 2, 3 tenths. Let's go 1.7. New call. Impact. Impact. Dude, and you can see those impacts on the plate. They're dead center. That's cool. So we're actually at 12.3 mils. Let's try a couple more. Okay, that went just off the 10 o'clock, I believe. Off the 2 o'clock. Ah, so 1 o'clock. Let's come down a tenth. Wind's a little bit shifty. Pat. Pat. That is so fun. How about we finish off at a mile? So let's see where we're at. This should be perfectly a mile, I believe. Let me just confirm that. All right, 1762 calls for 14.6 up. We dial that on. Let's just see how much we have actually. Oh, so we're actually at the top of the scope. So I can dial 15.1. Yeah, I needed something like 14.6. So there we are. Let's just see. Oh, there we are. All right. Let's just zoom all the way in to give you that experience. Okay, so definitely a little milky, even with the parallax. So that's just, you know, kind of glass clear. It is what it is. And let's just go left. I am on 24 power right now. Left 2 mils. So just off the 1 o'clock. Just lower it. Let's come down 2/10. So at this distance, a 24-inch plate is about 1.5-ish MOA. So that actually dropped quite a bit low. That might have been a slow round. Same hold. No call. No call. We'll send a couple more. Let's just kind of reset here at 2 mils. Impact. 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 It's a mile right there, baby. I dropped a little bit off the 7 o'clock. That one ran high. It could have been high velocity. So, man, that was fun. 1760, $200 barrel, $550 scope. Well, there it is. 7 PRC with a $200 barrel and a $550 optic out to a mile. I tell you what, I had an absolute blast filming this one. You gotta let me know in the comments down below what you thought about the performance of this rig. While you're doing that, let's talk about what I saw out here today. So the first thing we did was move down to the 100-yard line where we tested accuracy, scope tracking, return to zero, and got the RF module dialed in. So accuracy-wise, Outlier claims 1 MOA with their barrels, and I believe we saw that. So I fired 5 rounds there. They went into a group that measures 0.75 MOA. So sub-MOA actually, really nice accuracy at that 198 tip. I'm seeing multiple 5-round groups under 1 MOA with this rifle. You saw it there in the backfire challenge out here today. Seems like that 190 is shooting really well out of this Outlier. Velocity-wise, a little bit more spread than I'd like to see. Maybe that's a result of my hand loads. An average of 29.76 is good. Extreme spread of 46 and an SD of 13.1 is a little bit wider. If I take that fast round at 3001 out, it drops the spread to 33 and the SD to 10 or 11, which is more normal for my hand loads. And as you saw today, it works out to distance. I'd like to get it tighter, but it is what it is. Scope tracking, I dialed up 6 mils, and we did see a little bit of a difference there. So what I measured in the 3 rounds that I fired was 5.9 mils. On the tape measure, should have been 21.6, and I got about 21.25. So that's about a 98% accuracy, not 100. Now, we'd love to have 100, but ultimately you can correct for something like that in your ballistic calculator. I didn't today. If I was gonna be running more rounds or something, I definitely would, but definitely worth noting. The bigger thing there was return to zero. So I dialed back down to my 0 point, fired 3 rounds, and it was perfect. It was spot on, so really happy with that. Also at the 100-yard line, zeroed up my RF module here to my optic, visible laser. I could see that. The zeroing process for this RF module is a pain. It is tricky for one person. So you mount this in the ring, and the ring has a movable inside gimbal in it. And you have to get that close, and then you use the turrets to fine tune it. So ultimately, once it's zeroed, it works. Just a bit of a process to get there. So ultimately, I guess that's the trade-off for the very affordable price of this unit. Zeroed it up, loaded the ballistic, and then we pushed out to distance. First up, we shot here at 650 yards. Measured that with the RF module. Seemed to be spot on. The data it spit out for elevation was perfect. We went, I think it was 3 for 3, first round impact, and then followed it up for more. So RF module performed well. Optic, I held over. Reticle was very clean and usable. We pushed out 840 or so, and again, very good results. RF module ranged my targets out there just like it should. Gave me an elevation of, I believe, 4.5 mils. Held it over, and that was in the ballpark. I had some error on wind and then off of the tripod. You know, certainly that's normal. But ultimately, again, really like the way that reticle performs. That Christmas tree is clean and usable. So there's enough information in there that you can spot your impacts and then make corrections, but it doesn't feel cluttered. So I like the way that Christmas tree performs when I was holding over. Glass quality was good there. I could see my impacts on the plate. I could spot my misses. We pushed on out to 1,100 yards, and at this point, we're beyond the distance where the RF module could range. So the furthest range I got with it was 978. At the 1,100 yard mark, I was using my Vectronics Vector X binos, and I believe that was calling for something like maybe 7 mils of elevation. So the 7 mils of elevation seemed to be good. I think it was actually maybe 6.9, but it was right where it said it should be. So you think about the scope tracking difference we saw at the 100-yard line, out to 1,100 yards for me wasn't a major issue. And I think most of the places where you're going to be using this optic would be 1,000 yards and in, probably realistically 800 or 600 and in. So the ability to shoot out to 1,100 yards and make those impacts, even on the 12-inch echo gong that we did, I was impressed. So dialing there, the 7 mils I called for, landed where they should. The 0.2 increments on the reticle are beautiful. With the triangle there at the half, makes it really quick and easy to pick up where you need to be for those windage corrections. Again, glass, I could spot my impact. So at this point, I'm really impressed with the optic. Clicks are very stout, very, very positive clicks in that. So really happy with what I'm seeing so far. We push on out further. Again, shout out to Echo Gong for the new 24-inch circle there, that 1/4-inch steel that I could hike up the mountainside there to get you some further shots, because I really wanted to push the 7 PRC out. So we're out there at about 1,580. The Vectronics call for 12 mils of elevation. I believe my actual was 12.2 or 12.3. Now it's worth noting, I haven't shot the rifle to this kind of distance yet, so I haven't trued it out there. So that could be some error. Also, this could be maybe where we're seeing some error in the optic show up. So you think about 12 mils. That's 6 times 2. I was off by 1/10 at 6, so that would be 2/10 at 12. So is that maybe the difference I was seeing out there? I don't know. I don't have enough data. So 1, it could be truing my load. 2, it could be some of the error in the tracking showing up. I would need to put more rounds through the optic to verify that. But ultimately, shooting experience-wise at almost 1,600 yards, I made 4 impacts. Really impressive. That 7 PRC is so easy to shoot. Flat shooting, could spot my misses, could definitely see my impacts, could even see them on the plate through the optic. Now definitely glass quality was getting a little bit more milky or gray at this point. I was really kind of noticing that, but it was usable. And then we pushed on out to 1760. I wanted to get some hits at a mile, and we did that. I believe we put 3 on the plate there, 24-inch circle at 1760. You know, 14.5 mils of elevation. Off the top of my head, I think that's the flattest shooting caliber I have out to 1760. So at this point, yeah, I'm noticing the glass is pretty gray. We're right there at the top of the elevation travel in the scope. I had like 15.1 and I'm at 14.5, so we're right there at the top. You know, that's pretty cool for a $550 scope. $200 barrel to be putting 3 rounds out there on a 24-inch circle at a mile. So with that, let's talk about the setup in general and what I noticed. Now overall, really, really fun setup. So this $200 barrel, very affordable. This $550 optic, very affordable. They almost feel too good to be true. But I feel like the performance was there today. You know, you think about where this optic would be used, 1,000 yards and in, the glass quality was there, the reticle is very usable. The turrets, they seem to track, you know, they're off 1/10 there, at least for me at the 100-yard line. But if it's consistent, it's good to go. So really, really impressed with this optic for $550. You know, the other thing, this RF module on top, $530. This thing almost sounds too good to be true for a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder. It measured out to 978 yards and the ballistic data seemed to work. So I'm really impressed with this unit. I might spend some more time running it just to see how it holds up over time. You'll have to let me know. I haven't seen a ton of content on the RF module. And then the WOOX chassis. Man, this thing is just super fun. It's very unique. Really the coolest thing about it, I love the way it looks. It's kind of got that resto mod look, kind of the old school and the wood, kind of classy look. But then the features of a chassis. So you get the chassis mounting system. Man, you get the chassis adjustability here in the buttstock, you know, link the pull, cheek riser. And then you kind of get the robustness of the chassis. Well, I don't know what that was about. Magazine just dropped out. But then you get the robustness of a chassis. So overall, really, really fun chassis to shoot. Really like how smooth the cheek piece is here on my shoulder or on my cheek. It just feels really, really nice. You know, the one thing I did notice maybe as a potential area that I'm going to look to improve would be on the ARCA rail mounted to the bottom of the chassis. So this is a skeletonized chassis. So the chassis itself is very thin with wood that kind of fills out the width. But the way that ARCA sits, it allows it to kind of move or wiggle or rotate, especially when I'm in the prone is where I would see it. And you would see a little bit of windage shift in your optic. So I think moving forward, I might swap this ARCA section over to a Picatinny rail section, be a little bit narrower and be better supported. And I think that would clean up some of that windage kind of wiggle or wobble that I was seeing. But ultimately, you know, this WOOX chassis, it's pretty fun actually. Every time I would look at it, especially on the tripod, I thought it looked really, really cool on the tripod with the long barrel, and it just feels really nice in your hand. So you'll have to let me know in the comments down below, do you want to see me run some more content with the WOOX? I'd love to hear it. I'm kind of having fun. If you find yourself interested in picking up a WOOX, make sure you're using code MMM10 to get yourself 10% off. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap up. Ultimately, that was a blast. I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I did getting to shoot it. Let me know in the comments down below what you want me to see me do in future content with this rig or 7PRC in general, or any of the components here on this rifle. I love testing components and I want to do what my viewers want to see. Now, if you've made it this far, I've got to ask for your help. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, you're commenting, liking, sharing with your friends. I'm trying to grow this channel. I want to get to 100,000 subscribers, and I need your help to do it. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll join me in my next video.